Incomplete dominance and codominance. So what Mendel saw was complete dominance. If you had a gene for brown eyes, sorry, an allele for brown eyes and an allele for blue eyes, you had brown eyes, and that was it. So he looked at P's, and all of the traits that he looked at were dominant. He didn't see anything that was incompletely dominant or any codominant. At least he didn't study any of the traits that were. So let's look at what those are. So some traits show incomplete dominance. So, for example, the F1 hybrids have an appearance that's somewhat between the phenotypes of the two parental varieties. So that's what it means, and let's now look at an example. Okay, so here's Snapdragons. It's a flower. If you have the red flowered one and the white flowered one, big R is red, little r is white. Now let's look at what happens when they make a baby. So this one can make one type of gamete, just a big R. So let's say that's the male, it only makes sperm that have big R. And if this is the female, it only makes eggs that have R. But sometimes it's just easier to write them both in. So we can go ahead and do that. So this one makes gametes that are big R, and this one makes gametes that are little r. So when that one fertilizes that, you have, there we go, a big R and a little r. And actually they don't turn out red and they don't turn out white, they turn out pink. And that's incomplete dominance. That means the trait is somewhat between the two alleles. So this produces the F1 generation, and all are big R, little r, which is pink. So the heterozygous one is pink, and it's really not clearly one of them or the other. In fact, you almost shouldn't have a lowercase one, but we do just because they're the same letter. So here's a picture of that. So if you're white, it's little r, and red is big R, and all of the babies are big R, and they're all this pink color. So what I want you to do now is predict the results of this cross, big R, and little r. And so I'd like you to try this on paper on your own. So pause this video, try it, and see if you come up with the right answer. So what you get here is, I wish I had, no, okay, so wait a minute, let's do it together first. Okay, so this one makes the gametes big R, little r. And this one makes the gametes little r. Now it would make little r, so you can either choose to write it twice or just do the top one, it doesn't matter. So big R, big R, little r, and little r. So these end up being white, and these end up being not red, but pink. So you get half of them pink and half of them white. So let's try another one. Predict the results of this cross. So pink one mated with a pink one. So this one makes the gametes big R and little r. And remember, you put the gametes on one side. And this one makes the gametes big R and little r. Excuse me. So this fertilizes that. This sperm fertilizes that egg. Big R, big R. If this sperm fertilized that egg, you'd get big R, little r. And if this sperm fertilized that egg, you'd get big R, little r. It really doesn't matter which order you put it in. You could say little r, big R. Typically, we put the big one first, but it doesn't really matter. If that sperm fertilized that egg, you'd get little r, little r. So this used to be a 3-to-1 ratio, but now that we know about incomplete dominance, this trait is actually incompletely dominant. So we get one red for every 2 pink, and we get 1 white. There we go. 1 red, 1 white, and 2 pink. Another question. In Snapdragons, red flower color is incompletely dominant over white color, so we talked about that already. The heterozygous plants have pink flowers. All right, we know that already. Big R is red, big R, little r is pink, and little r is white. If a red flowered plant, so that means, so let's do this. We have to kind of dissect the question. If a red flowered plant is crossed with a white flowered plant, what are the genotypes and phenotypes of the plants? This one makes the gametes big R, big R. And this one makes the gametes little r, little r. You actually only need to do these two, but anyway, if you go ahead and do the whole thing, they all end up the same. Big R, little r. This one fertilizing that one, this one fertilizing that one, and so on. So they are 100% big R, little r. Excuse me. Which means that they are all pink. And so one thing that you want to do is know the difference between genotype and phenotype. Phenotype is what you look like. So 100% pink would be the phenotype. And big R, little r would be the genotype. So I just did that. So you get phenotypes 100% pink, genotypes 100% heterozygous, big R, little r, which is what we just did. So what phenotypes and genotypes would be produced in the F2 generation? Okay, so that means we already just finished F1, and the F1 generation were all big R, little r. So F2, you'd have big R, little r, and you'd mate it with another big R, little r. So you're mating this one with itself, perhaps, or its sibling. So if this sperm fertilized that egg, you'd get big R, big R. If that sperm fertilized that egg, big R, little r. If that sperm fertilized that big egg, it would be big R, little r, or you could write it little r, big R, doesn't matter. If that sperm fertilized that egg, little r, little r. So you'd get one red, two pink, and one white. That's what they look like. That would be the phenotypic ratio. The phenotype or the phenotypic ratio would be 1 to 2 to 1. That's actually the same as the genotypic ratio in this one, or the genotype. It would be 1 big R to 2 big R to 1 little r, little r. So the genotypes are what the alleles are. The phenotype is what they look like. In this case, the ratios are both 1 to 2 to 1. So this is just done out in a little bit prettier way. So the ratios are 1 to 2 to 1, whether it's phenotype or genotype. What kinds of offspring can be produced if a red-flowered plant is crossed with a pink-flowered plant? So this one's gametes, it would make one big R sperm, and it would make one little r sperm, or eggs, whatever. This one can only make big R. And if you want to just put big R and forget the bottom, you can, or if you want to fill them both in, so be it. This sperm fertilizes that egg, or whatever they are, that one and that one. This one and this one combine, and this one and this one would make big R, little r. So 50% of them will be red, and 50% of them will be pink. So if you want the phenotypic ratio, it would be 1 red to 1 pink. So for every 1 red, you get 1 pink. If you want the genotypic ratio, it would be 1 big R to 1 big R, little r. 50% red, 50% pink. Again, that's the phenotype because it's what they look like. What kind of offspring would be produced if a pink flowered plant, so let's just stop right here, pink flowered plant, is crossed with a white flowered plant? So that would be, the gametes here would be big R, little r, and the gametes here would be little r. There's another little r, you can draw it if you want. You don't actually have to. So 50% of them would be pink, 50% of them would be white. So the phenotypic ratio would be 1 to 1. The genotypic ratio would be 1 big R, little r to 1 little r, little r. So that's the whole thing done. Oh, I put the gametes on the different sides, but as long as one organism has its gametes on one side and the other one's on the other side, you're all set. 50% white, 50% pink, bum ba dum ba dum. And that is it for incomplete dominance.